It was supposed to be just another quiet night, but what I discovered shattered everything I thought I knew about my wife and our marriage. The betrayal was far worse than I could have ever imagined. As I uncovered the truth, I realized I wasn't just fighting for my marriage, I was fighting for my life. This is the story of how I took control, got my revenge, and found freedom after the ultimate heartbreak. It was a crisp autumn evening when the cracks in my world began to show. My wife, Claire, had told me she was going out with her friends, leaving me at home with a bottle of wine and an old movie to pass the time. We had been married for 7 years, long enough to know each other's habits, moods, and tells. But that night, something felt off. Her voice on the phone had sounded too cheerful, her laughter too forced. Still, I brushed it off, telling myself not to overthink. She walked through the door just after midnight, giggling like a teenager sneaking in past curfew. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly messy, and she carried the unmistakable scent of someone else's cologne. My stomach twisted, but I forced a smile, pretending nothing was wrong. Claire flopped onto the couch, kicked off her heels, and grinned at me. "You're in a good mood," I said, setting down my glass. "Yeah, it was a great night," she replied, her voice unusually high-pitched. "The girls and I had such a good time, nothing crazy, just drinks and laughs." I nodded, studying her closely. Glad to hear it. As the night went on, I noticed she avoided my eyes and clutched her phone like a lifeline. A creeping suspicion settled in, but I said nothing. Confrontation wasn't my style, at least not yet. Instead, I decided to wait and observe. After all, trust was supposed to be the foundation of our marriage. Or so I had believed. The next morning, Claire was unusually cheerful, humming as she made breakfast. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, but she didn't check it. When she left the room, I couldn't resist. My heart pounded as I picked up her phone and unlocked it. We had always known each other's passcodes, a sign of trust that now felt like a cruel joke. The messages were undeniable. "Last night was amazing," one read. "I can still feel your touch." My vision blurred as I scrolled through the stream of texts from someone saved as M. There were photos too, taken in a dimly lit hotel room. Claire was laughing, a glass in hand, draped across a man I didn't recognize. My world shattered in an instant. The betrayal hit like a physical blow, stealing my breath. I carefully placed the phone back where I had found it, forcing myself to stay calm. The rage would come later. For now, I needed clarity, a plan. Claire returned to the kitchen, completely unaware of what I had just discovered. She kissed me on the cheek and handed me a plate of eggs, her smile as radiant as ever. How could she act like everything was fine after what she had done? Over the next few days, I became a ghost in my own home, watching, listening, piecing together the depth of her betrayal. What I had assumed was a one-night mistake turned out to be far worse. Claire and had been seeing each other for months, stealing moments I thought belonged to us. The rage simmered beneath my skin, but I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I focused on gathering evidence, saving texts, photos, even receipts she carelessly left in her purse. Slowly, my plan began to take shape, bringing with it a grim sense of satisfaction. On the surface, I remained the same devoted husband. I cooked her favorite meals, laughed at her jokes, and even suggested a weekend getaway, just the two of us. Claire seemed relieved, as if my affection absolved her of guilt. Little did she know, I was setting the stage for her downfall. The weekend trip was my masterpiece. I booked a secluded cabin in the mountains, surrounded by nature. Claire was thrilled, gushing about how much she needed the escape. I packed our bags, ensuring every detail was perfect, including my camera equipment, a new hobby she never questioned. The first night was magical, at least on the surface. We drank wine by the fire, reminisced about our early days, even danced under the stars. But my mind was elsewhere, focused on the final execution of my plan. The next morning, I told Claire I wanted to take some photos of the scenery and suggested she sleep in. She agreed, snuggling deeper into the blankets as I grabbed my gear and stepped outside. Only I wasn't taking landscape photos. Instead, I set up hidden cameras inside our cabin, positioning them discreetly to capture exactly what I needed. When Claire finally woke, I suggested a hike, claiming I had found a beautiful spot nearby. Claire hesitated at first, but eventually agreed. We spent hours wandering the trails, and for a moment, I almost forgot the betrayal. Almost. Back at the cabin, Claire's phone buzzed incessantly. She glanced at it, her expression shifting to one of annoyance. "Work stuff," she muttered, dismissing the notifications. But I knew better. That evening, I prepared her favorite dinner, refilling her wine glass every time it neared empty. She laughed freely, unaware of the storm brewing. When she excused herself to use the bathroom, I picked up her phone from the counter and sent a single text to, "Let's end this." Then, I deleted the entire thread, leaving no trace. By the time we returned home, Claire was back to her usual self. Her laughter echoed through the house, until she reached for her purse. Suddenly, her face went pale. She frantically searched through it, her panic growing with each passing second. "Where is it?" she muttered, her voice trembling. "What's wrong?" I asked, feigning concern. "My wedding ring," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh no," I said, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. "When was the last time you had it?" She looked at me, her expression a mix of guilt and desperation. "I don't know. I must have taken it off somewhere." I had hidden it, of course. The ring, a symbol of our commitment, was now a weapon in my plan for revenge. The next day, I set everything into motion. I had meticulously prepared a file, detailing her affair in painful, undeniable detail. Photos, messages, even receipts, it was all there. I left it on the kitchen table, knowing she would find it. When she did, the color drained from her face. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "The truth," I replied. "The truth you've been hiding from me for months." She stammered, trying to explain, trying to justify. But I held up a hand, silencing her. "I don't want your excuses, Claire. I want you to leave." Her eyes widened, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please, we can work through this. I'll do anything." "It's too late," I said, my voice cold. "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." I had already spoken to a lawyer, ensuring the divorce would be swift and in my favor. The evidence I had gathered was enough to secure everything: the house, the car, even our savings. Claire had no idea what hit her. As she packed her bags, sobbing, I felt no remorse. She had destroyed our marriage, our trust. This wasn't just revenge. It was justice. In the weeks that followed, I moved on, rebuilding my life piece by piece. Claire, on the other hand, struggled. Had ghosted her, leaving her to face the consequences alone. Our mutual friends distanced themselves, siding with me once they learned the truth. She had lost everything. One evening, as I sat on the porch sipping a glass of whiskey, I reflected on the past few months. The pain of betrayal was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but so was a sense of triumph. I had taken back control. I had refused to be a victim. Claire's laughter no longer haunted me. It had been replaced by the sound of my own, a laughter born of freedom, resilience, and the sweet taste of revenge. The days after Claire's departure felt surreal. The house, once filled with her laughter and the silent weight of our broken trust, was eerily quiet. But in that silence, I found peace. For the first time in months, I could breathe. I focused on myself, taking long walks, visiting old friends, rediscovering hobbies I had neglected during my marriage. The pain of betrayal slowly faded, replaced by something stronger: self-worth. I wasn't the man who had been cheated on. I was the man who had survived and thrived. Claire, on the other hand, was unraveling. I had no idea where she was living, but from the few conversations I had with mutual friends, it was clear she was struggling. She had lost everything: her marriage, her social circle, her dignity. Had cut ties with her completely, leaving her isolated and alone. One evening, I ran into an old mutual friend, Sarah, at a local cafe. At first, she hesitated, But then she opened up about Claire's situation. She's a mess, Jack. She's been trying to contact you, but you know how it is, you're just gone from her life now. She has nothing left, Sarah said, her voice filled with pity. I shrugged, feeling no sympathy. She made her choices, Sarah. Now she has to live with them. Sarah nodded, looking at me with understanding. I know. I just hope she learns something from all this. And you, how are you doing? I smiled, a real smile, one that had been a long time coming. I'm good, Sarah. Really good. I'm finally free. And that's all I needed. As the weeks passed, I moved forward. The divorce was finalized quickly, just as I had planned. The house was mine. My savings were intact. And every time I stepped through the front door, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. More than that, though, I felt the weight of the betrayal lifting, piece by piece, day by day. Claire's attempts to reach me dwindled over time. I received a few desperate messages, pleading for another chance, asking for forgiveness. But I never responded. My silence was my answer. She didn't deserve the closure she sought, because I had already given it to myself. One night, months after the divorce, I found myself sitting on the porch of my peaceful home, watching the sunset. I thought about Claire, the woman I had once loved, and the woman who had betrayed me. There was no anger anymore, just a quiet understanding. She had her reasons, but they were never enough to justify what she did. As the last light of the day faded into darkness, I raised my glass of whiskey, a toast to the future, to my freedom, and to the new life I was building. I wasn't the man I had been before. I was stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to protect my peace. The betrayal had shaped me, but it hadn't broken me. I was finally in control of my own life. And for the first time in a long time, I was genuinely happy. Claire thought she could get away with it, but the truth always comes out. And so does justice. But this story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming your life when everything feels lost. If you've ever faced betrayal or heartbreak, you know how painful it can be. But there is always a way forward. Don't let anyone steal your peace. Thanks for watching, and remember, always trust your instincts. And if you've ever been in a situation like this, know that you're not alone. You will come out stronger on the other side.